It's pretty amazing when you think about it. Across almost every culture, in every corner of the world, people have looked up at these massive peaks and felt something more. Not just, wow, that's big, but a real deep spiritual connection. So today, we're going to dive into that very connection. We're going to try and figure out why mountains have always been these incredible anchors of meaning for us.
So, why do we look up to mountains? I mean, it seems like a simple question on the surface, doesn't it? But the answer, well, it's way more complex, and it tells us so much about who we are. Why have we always given these huge chunks of rock and ice so much sacred power? What is it we're really seeing when our eyes drift upward? All right, let's get into it.
Okay, so what even makes a mountain sacred in the first place? Well, it pretty much boils down to three key things. First up, you've got permanence. I mean, they're just these symbols of stability in a world that's always changing. Then, of course, there's elevation. They literally tower over us. And that leads right to the third point, this feeling of proximity to the divine. You're just closer to the heavens up there. These three ideas, they're really the key to understanding this whole thing. All right, so let's start with that really basic human impulse. Before we jump into specific cultures and all their amazing beliefs, let's ask a more fundamental question. What is it about us, about our shared psychology, that just pulls our attention to these giant peaks? I mean, just think about it for a second. Our everyday life down here on the ground, it's a whirlwind, right? It's chaotic, it's temporary, things are always shifting around. But mountains, they're the complete opposite. They're ancient, they're still, they're unmoving. They give us this fixed point on the horizon, this anchor of permanence that kind of helps us get a foothold in our own fast-paced lives. They just rise above all the noise and give us perspective and a really powerful sense of stability. Okay, so now that we've got a handle on that universal feeling, let's see how it actually plays out in different cultures. And our journey is going to start in Asia, where some of the most sacred peaks on the planet aren't just seen as important, they're literally seen as the center of the entire universe. And just look at this. It's fascinating how different traditions all land on this same powerful idea. For Hindus, Buddhists, and Jains, you have mountains like Kailash and the mythical Mount Meru. To them, these aren't just big landforms. They're the literal pivot point of the cosmos, the axis mundi, or world axis. And then you jump over to Japan, and Mount Fuji has that same kind of pull, serving as this incredible spiritual and national icon that really centers the whole culture. And I really want to stress, this isn't just some poetic metaphor for them. For millions and millions of people, Mount Kailash is the literal, physical pillar holding up the heavens. It's the thing that connects our world down here to the divine realm up there. It is the ultimate cosmic anchor, the thing that holds reality itself together. Just wow. Okay, so from these incredible cosmic pillars, let's travel to a totally different part of the world. We're heading to the Middle East, where in the Abrahamic traditions, mountains take on a different but just as critical role. They become the actual stage for divine communication. So here, it's all about specific history-altering events. You take Mount Sinai. It's not just any old peak, it's the place where divine law was handed down to humanity, a moment that shaped entire civilizations. Then you have Mount Ararat, which became this powerful symbol of hope and survival, the first solid ground in a brand new world. For these traditions, the mountains are totally defined by the sacred stories that happened right there on their slopes. And this brings us right back to that idea of proximity we talked about earlier. I mean, why do these huge revelations always seem to happen on mountains? Well, because elevation matters. When you climb a mountain, you're physically leaving the everyday world behind, and you're moving up towards the heavens. You're getting closer to the divine, and that creates this special space where a conversation between humanity and God can actually happen. All right, our journey isn't over yet. Now we're going to look at two really fascinating and totally different ways of seeing a mountain's sacredness. It boils down to this. Is the mountain a home for the gods, or is the mountain a divine being itself? So first, let's look at ancient Greece. For them, Mount Olympus was basically the ultimate celestial address. It was a real physical place, way up above the clouds, where the gods lived and partied and schemed. The mountain was sacred, for sure, but because of who lived there, the gods and the mountain were two separate things. Olympus was basically their palace in the sky. Okay, now let's flip that idea completely on its head and go to the Americas. For Andean cultures, the mountain isn't just a house for a god, the mountain is the god.
These massive peaks, which they call Abus, were seen as powerful, living, conscious spirits. People didn't worship them because of who lived on top. They were worshipped for being the actual living beings that they were.
So you see the difference, right? It's just an incredible example of how diverse these beliefs can be. On one side, you have a divine home, a location. On the other, a divine being, an identity. Both traditions see the mountain as sacred. Absolutely. But how it's sacred is fundamentally different. It just goes to show you, there's no one single way to look up.
Okay, wow. So we've basically traveled the globe, from Asia's cosmic pillars to the mountains of revelation and the homes of the gods. Let's try and bring all these threads together now and get back to our main idea. So what have we seen? We've seen mountains as the center of the universe. We've seen them as a stage for divine messages, as homes for gods, and even as living spirits themselves. The specifics are all over the map, but they all come from that same basic human drive, to find meaning in something that feels huge and permanent. And really, that's what it all boils down to. It's so simple. Mountains anchor meaning. That's it. In a world that's so full of chaos and change, they give us a physical, a spiritual, and a cultural fixed point. They remind us of our own scale, they connect us to something bigger and way more lasting than ourselves, and they give us a place to orient our whole lives around.
And that just leaves us with one last question to chew on. In our super modern, fast-paced world, maybe not all of us are looking to actual literal mountains for that sense of meaning anymore. So the real question becomes, what are the mountains that anchor us today? What are those unshakable things in your own life that give you that stability, that perspective? It's definitely something to think about.